welcome to TMXE Adventures. My name is Lisa Keegan and today I'm here to inspire you with a new recipe to make in your Thermomix. Now this one's a little bit fancy. It's really getting ready for Father's Day, but you could use this for any special occasion. And this is the beautiful chocolate and caramel, I think it's called Millefeuilli, but I don't actually know if I pronounced that right. Now it is from the US cookie dough. It is brand new on the platform, so do check it out and give this recipe a go. I'm actually going to follow it through step by step, exactly as it's called for today. So if you watch along, you'll learn how to do this, and I'd love to see you give this a go in your Thermomix. So the first thing we're going to make today is a beautiful caramel. Now you cannot make this in a TM5 or TM31. It has to be the TM6 with your high heat recipe. Those of you who want to make this, who have a TM31 or a TM5, it is a stovetop recipe for you. So let's get started straight away on start cooking. First thing we're going to do, it gives us a bit of a brief about making sure we follow the sugar stages step by step, is we're going to then get going on our beautiful nut layer that gets part of the caramel with this recipe. So it says 1 ounce of hazelnuts, 1 ounce of walnuts. By the way, we'll talk about ounces in a second. 1 ounce of pistachios and 1 ounce of blanched almonds. Now ounces, that's because we're in the US, right, with these recipes. So obviously I'm not in the US, but I'm in Australia, so we work in grams. So how can I work it out? Well, the Thermomix matches it. However, if you're shopping for the ingredients, you multiply by 3 and add a 0. So approximately 4 ounces multiplied by 3, that's 12, right? Add a 0, 120 grams of nuts. Now, being that I'm in a caravan at the moment, we don't have a huge amount of pantry stocks. So I've just got pistachios, which have been traveling with us the last 2 months, and almonds. So I'm going to put in what I've got here, which is actually about 3.8 ounces, and we're going to chop those down. There we go, 3.6. It's going to chop down. It's not going to take long. It's actually a really rough dice, so it's not a fine chop. 5 seconds, speed 5. Okay, so I am missing the walnuts and I am missing something else in there. Can't remember what that was, but it doesn't matter. That's the great thing about Thermomix. Use what you've got. So next up, we're going to transfer that aside onto baking paper, and we're going to move on to the sugar stages. So let me come back in a second. I'm not going to clean out my bowl, but I'm going to now move straight on to sugar steps. Now this is so easy with the TM6. It gives you that ability to make things like honeycomb, caramels, toffees, those sorts of things. But you have to follow the recipe as it's prescribed. So the first thing is 10.5 ounces of sugar. Most of you guys know I normally use sugar alternatives. Not in this case with this recipe. You need to, stick to it. Otherwise, it is a good chance it will flop. So, and the other thing with the sugar stages, let me just make a note on that as well. Stay around for the last couple of minutes of cooking on this recipe. I think it's a 20-minute cook, but stay around because sometimes your sugars, if they're a finer grain, will cook faster. If they're a more coarse grain, will cook slower, and it could actually burn your toffee. So stay around. You'll smell it when it's not quite, when it's turning, when it's going to go over. Oh, 10.5 ounces. I've only done 9.9, a little bit more. Okay, a little bit more there, that's okay. All right, 1 ounce of water. It's not much water, that's 30 grams, right? I did especially go out and buy the raw sugar for this recipe because you guys know we don't normally have that in the house. Okay, 1 ounce of water and 1 teaspoon of lemon. So that's just a squeeze of lemon in there. So I'm going to give that a little squeeze. It offsets that sweetness. It's quite important in toffees to have that usually. And push down to cover with the spatula. Now, I don't think I've got my spatula out. Let me just grab my TM5 spatula out of the drawer. And it says to cover in the water because you'll notice there some of it's not wet yet. So it actually wants you to make sure most of it is slightly wet in there. It won't be all wet, but just a little bit. And now all we're going to do is we're going to turn this on and let it do its thing. So it's going to cook it up to the 160 degrees without the measuring cup, by the way. Let's remove that. And turn this into a beautiful toffee. When that's done, I will come back, okay? But it's an important step that we need to act fast on, where we're going to pour it on top of the nuts, going to put some water and vinegar back in this bowl super fast. We don't want that toffee to wreck our bowl. And then pour it out and let it set, and I'll move on to the next few steps in this recipe. So I will be back in 20 minutes and I'll show you the next step. See you then, guys. Okay guys, we are back. It has 14 seconds to go. We're nearly done. It is smelling absolutely amazing. I've got my tray ready with baking paper and the nuts spread out on it, and I've got my next lot of ingredients. However, I don't think I'll get onto that step yet because I have to clean out this bowl. So let's wait for it to unlock. Now it says, caution, the contents are very hot. Immediately pour it onto the prepared baking sheet and spread over the chopped nuts until it's 3/4 to 1 inch in thickness. It smells amazing. So I don't know if you guys can see this. I don't know if I can do it left-handed either, but let's give it a go. So I'm just trying to spread it over this. It's so caramelly smelling. It smells absolutely amazing. Borderline nearly burnt, just to be completely honest, but again, that's always going to come down to your sugar. Not quite. I think it's going to be okay, but it does have that nearly over the top smell. So there we go. That is the caramel done. Now, don't be too precious about getting the leftovers out. What we do need to do is clean up around the rim so you can get the lid on. So I'm just wiping down the little rim around the front there. And then, next, clean the caramel residues from the edge of the mixing bowl. Now we need some water. We need a lot of water. So excuse me while I fill this up with the water. 35 ounces. So it must be about 1 and a bit litres. Excuse me while I get this in here, because this is what's going to get these caramel off it. It is set like concrete in there, which is quite scary, kind of, to a certain extent, thinking, oh my gosh, my Thermomix has got all this sticky, goopy, well, actually set hard stuff on it. Just excuse me while I fill the last bit up in here. There we go. And then this is the magic ingredient though. I've gone over, it doesn't really matter. 1.5 ounces of vinegar. This is the thing that gets this goopy, hard stuff off, and your Thermomix will be so incredibly shiny in a couple of minutes. So what it's going to do now is it's actually going to put you straight onto a pre-clean, and it'll clean it for you. So we're going to go turn the speed to fat or caramel to start. So there, down we go, and now I leave it. That's going to make that sparkling shiny. So we're going to tip that water out in a moment. You can hear that blade struggling to turn because of that sugar. It's set. You can hear it. It's okay though. It knows what it's doing. It's actually judging by how much it can turn or not turn the blades as to how long it's going to need to cook that off for to make it all nice and shiny in there again and loose. So it's got approximately 5 minutes. That will probably go up. Normally I find it takes about 12 minutes, but it's still guesstimating the time. It will tell me as it starts going down, and we'll come back in a moment for the next stage. So I'll see you shortly, guys. Okay guys, I'm back. This water and vinegar has been going in here for about 6-7 minutes, I reckon. I don't know, I kind of walked away and let it do its thing. And you can see straight up, I don't know if I can actually show you effectively, but it's certainly, I'll show you the other side though. Remember how there was all that sticky toffee up the back? It's all gone. So that's the beauty of, oh, I've just got some on the computer. That's the beauty of the cleaning mode, and even things like making toffee in your Thermomix. Check that out. Now the next step does need a clean and dry mixing bowl, so I could rinse it out. However, I'm just going to swap it out. So just let me grab a brand new bowl to do the next step on, because the next step is making a chocolate ganache. Now, the enemy of chocolate is water. So we want to make sure that the mixing bowl is dry. So if you're cooking along at home, take the time to rinse that bowl out, get the vinegar out of it and the water, make sure it's dry. So first things first is some dark chocolate, 70% cocoa cut into pieces. So I've just got some Belgium, I think it's Coles brand chocolate, kind of big pieces I'm going for at the moment. And we need 14 ounces, which is approximately 400 grams. We don't normally do 70%, we only do 85 or 90. But you know what? We're going to celebrate Father's Day in style, so why not? Once off, all okay. Insert the measuring cup into the mixing bowl lid, then, just looking for my measuring cup, it's over here. It's going to chop it. So 3 seconds, speed 10, and watch this. Alright, it has chopped that down and not grated fully. Let's have a look, because I did put big chunks in still, right? So there is a couple of big chunks still, because I did do it so chunky. So let's hit the back arrow. You saw me. I didn't, normally I say blade size, down beside the blade shaft, right? I did big bits. So let's do it one more time. Get those last few bits down. Alright, that should be better. So now, and what that does is it actually makes it really consistent to melt, which is what we want to do. We want to make it a consistent melt. Now it is literally little crumbs, little breadcrumb kind of consistency of chocolate. Now it says next 14 ounces of heavy whipping cream. I've just got good old thickened cream. It'll do the job. It's going to be, I don't know how much that is. Let's have a look. It'll be, I think, about 400 grams as well. So in this goes. Looking at those scales, making sure I don't go too far off, because you guys know that that is usually my style. And then that'll do. Insert the measuring cup into the mixing bowl lid then, 3 minutes. So it's going to now cook that together for 3 minutes before we add some butter. So you'll need to have some butter ready that's going to go into this shortly, which will make it beautiful and silky. Just a little tip with these next few steps. It is going to go, once we get the butter into it, it's going to actually go in the fridge to set and cool. Then we actually add our butterfly in to aerate it. So don't get, I guess, too ahead of yourself and actually remove it from the Thermomix. You want to allow enough time in this recipe for it to cool in the fridge to then aerate and whip this beautiful ganache up, which is going to give it a gorgeous fluffy texture, as opposed to it being that really, I don't know, I guess heavier kind of feel that ganache can have, where it's, you normally have a thin layer of ganache, because if it's too thick it's just too overpowering. So that is going to be really cool. You can see the temperature clocking up. By the way, this back there here is looking amazing. It is set beautifully. Let's have a look at that. It is still slightly movable. I can see that. Oh no, maybe it's the baking paper moving. But that's going to be yummy when I cut it up. I did taste test a little bit off the spatula. It's not burnt at all. So that is just amazing. If you are making this recipe, I would highly recommend. You guys saw the raw sugar I used. It's perfect. Absolutely perfect. No burning in there. Like I said to you guys, it might have just started to go. It's fine. It's absolutely amazing. So I'm so impressed with that. I don't do the sugar stuff very often. You guys know that. But I tell you, when I do, I want it to be good. And it certainly is pretty good with the Thermomix. So this is now melting down. I probably should have scraped down the sides in hindsight. Did it ask me to and I skipped that? I'm not sure, but I can see the chocolate up the sides of the bowl. So I wonder, let me just have a look at the recipe details and check that out. Let's go down. Where are we? Down here. No, it didn't say to scrape down the sides. Awesome. All right, let's see how we go, because I can just see that it's all stuck up the sides in that bowl in there. So maybe if I put the lid back on though, maybe we'll find that heat in there will actually drop it down the sides. It's now made it up to the 105 degrees, which is actually really quite hot for melting chocolate. You would not want to melt chocolate on its own at that temperature. With the cream in there, it's okay, but if you're doing it on its own, it will actually burn and it will separate the oil out. So if you ever just need to melt chocolate, you don't want to go higher than 50 degrees, and that's enough to actually melt it in your Thermomix. So there's some tips there for your chocolate making as well. Here we go, nearly done. Get this butter ready, and we'll be on to the next step. The other thing is with your cream, don't try and use a light cream. You will find a light cream has too much water content and it does not go well with chocolate. So it does need to be a dolloping cream or a real cream or a thickened cream. A thickened cream has stabilizers in it, so it's not just not cream. It's got other stuff in it. It has a bit of cream and then water and a thickener. So you'll notice that the tag is a bit different on that. So just a little FYI, light cream won't work. All right. Okay, here we go. It's all melting. 2 seconds to go. Next up, so now we've got 2 ounces of unsalted butter. I'll just show you what this looks like. It actually looks a bit like melted. It looks like a smoothie. Oh, my light is terrible. I can't. There you go. I was going to say, I can't wait to get our new caravan next year, because it's going to have good lighting and it's going to have permanent camera set up so I can cook with you guys all the time without the issue of lighting. All right, 2 ounces in it goes. So that's 0.7. Here comes another chunk. Now, something to know in the next step later. Obviously, there's going to be a gap when you're cooking this along at home between these 2 steps because of the cool down time with your bowl. You are going to require some cold water for the pastry, and you're going to require cold butter. So just be, I guess, mindful of that, and this is your time to have that jug of water in the fridge getting cold, and your butter back in the fridge cold as well. And it does have a fair amount of butter in the next step. It is a traditional puff pastry. Those of you who have been watching along for a while, you know that I have shown you how to make puff pastry in the past, and it's really simple and quick. This one's a bit more, I guess, complex, but it's a bit more fluffier. You're going to see that it gets those beautiful layers in it like croissants do. That's what we're aiming for. So I am doing them gluten-free as well for those of you who are gluten-free. So that will be coming next, but you do need cold butter, cold water. All right, let's blend this 10-second speed forward and see if it captures the rest of that chocolate into the mix. Let's have a look. see what it looks like. Nearly done. It's cooled down dramatically, having that butter put in there. You can see it's dropped right down to 75 degrees or 150 Fahrenheit. Remove the mixing bowl lid and set aside to cool completely. Oh, it's grabbed a fair amount of it, but not quite all of it. However, I reckon as I scrape it down, it's going to capture that into it and it will melt fairly quickly, because 80 degrees is still fairly warm. So I'll just give it a stir, and I'm just going to give you some feedback on that. Yeah, it's not a problem. It's melting that in beautifully. So this looks like what you pour over a chocolate cake at the moment. Again, that beautiful richness to it, although there's no sugar in this except the stuff that's in the 70% chocolate. But it now needs to cool down. I'll just show you. Let me just grab this and show you. Look at that. It's beautiful. It's no chunks in it. It's amazing. It's not separated. It just looks like beautiful, luscious chocolate sauce. So it needs to remove from the mixing bowl lid, set aside to cool completely, put it in the fridge until chilled for approximately 20 minutes. Leave it in the bowl, because we're then going to be adding the butterfly in here, and we're going to whip it back up, get a bit of air into it, light and fluffy it slightly before we move on to making the puff pastry soon. So I look forward to showing you the next step soon of how to make amazing puff pastry in your Thermomix, traditional puff pastry, not the short version like we normally do. And I'll show you that soon, and then the assembly of this all beautifully later on. So I'll see you soon. Bye guys. Okay guys, welcome back. This has nicely chilled now. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it certainly is set, like to the point that the spatula was standing up in there. So it's said to set it aside, and now we put it back in the mixing bowl and we add our butterfly. So if you're not familiar with where your butterfly goes, or you maybe you've forgotten, you find your high set of blades. So you do a little dig around. Wow, it is set in there. Look at that. I might dig around with my spatula instead, because you do want it moving a little bit, because otherwise it's not going to go. Our butterfly is for smooth food that's easily to move. So what we're looking for in there is a high set of blades. That's the blades you actually want to put the butterfly behind. So once you find your high blades, which are the only ones you'll find with that spatula in there, you just place the butterfly down behind it and give it a wiggle and jiggle till it's in the right spot. So butterfly in. Insert the measuring cup. You can see as well, I don't know if you can see there, but the picture actually has a picture of the high blades on the bowl. That reminds you that that's the ones you want to use. Insert the measuring cup, and now we're going to spin it up, and it says to speed 3 without setting a timer. So I'm just going to do this, check that, without setting a timer. Here we go. And it says whipping until light and airy. You can hear it struggling to start. That's okay, don't stress. It's the Thermomix just kicking in its little speed thing to go. It's perfectly fine. Watching carefully to avoid over whipping. So I guess I'm watching it turn into thick and cream kind of equivalent. Is I guess what I'm thinking I'm supposed to be watching for. Not too sure. But it's looking beautiful. Alright, let's have a look at it. No, I think it's not yet staying up on its own, so it may not be ready, but I'll show you what this looks like. Look at that in there. Isn't that lovely? And you see how it's changed colour, so it is getting aerated. I might just give it a scrape down on the sides. You can see that aeration happening. Scrape it down. Alright. And then let's do it again. A little bit longer. Now this is going to go into a bag. Now I'm going to put it in a Glad bag and just cut the end off, because I don't have a fancy piping bag on the road. And then I'm going to put it in the fridge so it's ready to squeeze out when I need it to serve these beautiful little pastries. So that's my plan. If you have a piping bag, use your piping bags. Okay, nearly there. It's looking beautiful. It's just so silky and smooth and decadent looking. I don't do fancy very often, but when I do, this is the sort of food I like. Alright. Probably guaranteed to have a tummy ache, but it is going to be gluten-free, so that at least is part of the challenge done. Alright, that's better. Have a look at that colour. Can you see how it's very mousse-like? That's what we're aiming for. So you can see that colour change in there. And actually, if I show you the spatula, can you guys see you've got your original colour, you've got the half aerated, and then you've got this really beautiful aerated. If you go much further, it's going to turn into butter. We don't want chocolate flavoured butter, although I think it'd be yummy. Save that for something else. So now we move on to making our beautiful pastries. So it tells you there, by the way, transfer the bag to the piping bag, ready for later. So clean and dry the mixing bowl. So I'll come back later and we'll be all doing the pastry part and assembling them later. So I can't wait to show you how to finish this off. It is beautiful. You should really give it a go. There's something really nice about trying something that there is no way you'd ever try without a Thermomix, and nailing it, succeeding, which is awesome. So I'll see you soon, guys. Bye for now. Hi guys, how are you? So we are putting together the most amazing dessert for Father's Day or any other celebration you want to do, and we're making this chocolate and caramel Millefeuilli. I don't know how you pronounce that. Now the base part, which is all that's left to do now, is actually a puff pastry. Now I looked at this recipe and originally I was going to follow it through and do the one that they do with the butter in the center, where you fold it over a bit like croissants. So if you haven't seen my croissants video, go check that out. But it's a lot of butter, it's a lot of flour, and I don't think I want quite that much of it. Actually, this recipe, you can probably halve it or quarter it. It's a lot of beautiful chocolate fondant, a lot of caramel, although you don't need to halve the caramel, it's just yummy. But yeah, it makes quite a portion really. It says serve 6, I reckon you could serve easily 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump out of this recipe and I'm going to take you to our quick puff pastry recipe. So let's just go to, I've actually put it in my recently cooked because I was looking for it so I could get on and show you guys this. And I'm going to use this instead. It actually has less flour and butter. I know that it's going to work with the gluten-free flour, and yeah, I'll show you how to do this. The trick to puff pastry to get the flakiness though is the folding technique. It'll actually be done in the machine, and then we'll put it aside and we'll come back once it's chilled, and actually I'll show you the folding because that's how you get the beautiful flaky layers into it. So let's get started, and we're going first of all with 200 grams of unsalted butter. Now it has to be cold, okay? Pastry does not like warmth and humidity. Make sure it's cold. And even if I was at home, I'd actually put an ice cube into this instead of the water. However, I don't have ice, so I'm just going to roll with what I've got. I'm just getting this last bit of butter. There we go. But make sure it's cold, not on the bench, okay? So not that lukewarm that's been sitting out on a bench of butter. Next is 200 grams of your plain flour. So this is where I'm putting the gluten-free in. This is not my preferred brand. Most of you guys know that I tend to use the other brand. You guys will have watched along to see. This one is a bit more, it's got more tapioca or arrowroot in it, and I find it gets a bit more slippery feeling. So I'm going to pull it a bit short. I'm going to stop at 180 if I can. There we go. And I can add some more later if I need to. But I do find it is that bit slimier feeling. So 90 grams of chilled water. And this is where I would have chucked in an ice cube just to make sure it was super duper cold if I was at home. There we go, 90 grams, and then a little bit of salt. So in that goes. Got that organised early. Alright, next up we put the lid on, and it's as simple as this. It's got 5 seconds mix time, speed 6. So 5 seconds, speed 6. And can you believe it? That's pretty much it. So that's how you make your pastry. Now, being gluten-free, I find this flour is really floaty. Let's have a look. It tends to stick up the sides and you will lose it if you don't scrape it down. So I will grab a spatula out, I'll hit the back arrow, I'll just redo that again. You'll notice that it is quite pasty. That is why it now needs to be actually put preferably on your Thermomat. But I have a challenge, I don't have my Thermomat with me. It's one of the things I regret that I left at home. And it needs to now chill. That butter needs to get cold again within that pastry so that it is ready to roll out, because we're going to roll it out lengthways and then we're going to do some folding with it to get flakiness within those layers. So I'll leave it with that with you guys, because I'm going to scrape the sides down, get the spatula out and hit the back arrow and do that step again. But I will see you once this is chilled. I will get it out of the fridge and I will show you how to fold it. Let's make those flaky layers in it to make the beautiful sheets of pastry to complete this recipe. So I'll see you again soon, guys. So let's keep going. This though, as I said, those of you gluten-free, all gluten-free flour is not made equal. So I've used a generic brand today, and it's not my go-to. Those of you who watch along know long enough that the Orgum brand is pretty reliable. It is my favorite for pastries, but I'm going to give this a go anyway. So I've got you guys watching down here. Do say hi if you're watching today. Thanks to those of you that are saying hi. Unfortunately, the computer's a little bit far away on my bed, but that's okay. And you know what the other unfortunate thing is? I don't have my Thermomat. I am really sad about the fact that I actually left that in Brisbane, which is just terrible. Okay, it is going to make such a mess here on my bench to make this without a Thermomat. If you don't have yourself a Thermomat, go check them out in the mix shop. Buy yourself one. Remember to put me down as your consultant so that I can, number one, track it, but number two, I get a tiny little bonus. or book a demo. We can do a demo online and that'll actually get you a discounted one. So this here is made with that flour there, so it is going to be a bit tricky to work with. But the trick to making layers in puff pastry is you actually do a folding here where you fold in thirds. So I've rolled it out, I'm going to fold it over, and I'm going to bring the other side to it. And I'm going to fold it over. Now this is where I'm a bit scared about my pastry. It is, as I said, a bit of an oh my goodness, is this going to work moment for me? But I want to show you anyway, because I want to show you that it's achievable. Now that you've done those thirds, we want to make sure we flour the bench well again. Or ideally you thermomat and you won't have anywhere near as much mess as me. Just watch out for those bits of pastry on your bench. Make sure they've got a bit of flour on them, because otherwise I find that you get the sticking the next turn. You'll get the stick to it and you don't want it sticking. You can see my top's a bit of a mess. That's that gluten-free. Those of you who are not gluten-free, this is a really, you will not find this challenging whatsoever. Your gluten in it sticks together beautifully and stretches beautifully as well. Okay, so I want to do this at least one more time where I do a roll out and a rotate, okay, to get it, well, a roll, then a fold, and then a rotate. So I want to get these layers into it. The flour, the little bit of flour on there, which is actually quite a bit because it's the gluten stuff, is going to give me a bit of flake in it as well, and helps that butter spread out into fine layers. So let's just roll this out. You'll see each time we do this, it gets a little bit easier to work with. And this time, I'm actually rolling it the wrong way, to be honest. My fold went that way. I should have been rolling it this way. I didn't rotate it round, or did I? I don't know. Anyway, let's keep going. Doesn't matter, as long as you get folds into it that create flaky layers. Over we go. Now you can see this time it's actually a bit smoother. It's not so difficult to work with. Two things are happening. It's relaxing, but also that butter's starting to melt. Butter and pastry need to stay, or pastry particularly needs to stay cold, or not body temperature. If it starts getting too hot, you're going to find it really hard to work with, whether it's glutinous or gluten-free. So just a little trick, and I am going to actually attach a video of me making puff pastry at home with my other brand, so that you can see the difference it actually makes. And I've also got one there with flour. So I'm going to send you guys a few links in underneath this when it's done, of different ones as well, because it really does come down to the brand of your flour. Those of you with plain flour or baker's flour, you got it easy peasy, okay? So, fold it over. This is the last fold. You'll see it's starting to get flaky. I don't know if you guys can see on the little camera there, but you can see there's a little flake. You can see the layers into it. And here we go. You can see it's actually sticking to my bench. Now it's getting too warm. And actually I could have, Thermomat, guys, is all I can say. One word, Thermomat, and you wouldn't have issues, because it doesn't stick to the silicone like it's sticking to my caravan bench top here. But I'm keeping it real for you guys, okay? There is no, pretend shows here where everything works out fine, because you know what? Your kitchen, I bet you your kitchen's not fine all the time either, right? So this is it. Now what I want to do is I want to make this into one big square or rectangle to cut my layers. So this beautiful recipe, which I'm wondering if I can pull up now. It's not bringing me up my recipes. It's not connected. All right. Something's not going on here in my hotspot. So with this recipe, it is two beautiful puff pastry rectangles that then you put the beautiful fondant in the middle and the lovely caramel on top. A lot of you guys following along, you would have seen my plan for the week. So what I want to do with this is I want to roll it now into a big rectangle or square. It doesn't particularly matter. Make sure you get enough serves for whoever you're cooking for. So if you're cooking for your family and there's 6 of you, you want to cut 12 little squares or rectangles that are going to become a top and a bottom layer to put that beautiful chocolate in, chocolate on top and caramel on top as well. Can't believe my cookie dough got kicked out when I shut down before. So that's it from me. I am going to manhandle this. It has beautiful layers in it now, but it is getting warm. Now the beauty of it, did I mention the Thermomat or even your oven mat, is you could lift the whole lot up and put it in your fridge. I don't have that luxury. I'm going to have to probably get an egg flip underneath to get the layers up. So that's how I'm going to manhandle it. You can see it's starting to get, you can see here the holes. That is that humidity, the warmth. I am in North Queensland at the moment, and that's actually what's happening there, is the humidity starting to get to it. Keep the flour up to it. Try not to get too much flour on your floor if you don't have a Thermomat. I am making a big mess on my floor. But that is puff pastry in your Thermomix. It'll cook on a 200-degree oven. I think it's for 15 minutes, but check. It's under your, this is actually the quick puff pastry recipe on Cookie Do. So check that out. So I'm going to love yous and leave you this afternoon. If you want any help with this, when you're giving this a go, give me a call. But I will, as I mentioned, put some of the other videos that I've done of puff pastry below, so you can see how easy it is. Number 1 on the Thermomat, and number 2 with other flours, and number 3 in the kitchen. But the beauty of Thermomix is you can cook from anywhere quite simply and easily. So take care. Let me know if I can help you with anything regarding your Thermomix, recipe inspiration. You know, if you need help with a recipe, that's what I'm here for. So please take care, and I will see you probably over the weekend, but definitely come Monday next week. See you then, guys.